Have you ever wondered what economists are actually talking about when they use all that jargon? Well, today we're going to cut right through it. We're going to get to the core ideas, the absolute foundations that drive everything from how you spend your money to how global markets work. Let's jump right in.
So first things first, what is economics really? Is it just about money and stocks and complicated spreadsheets? Not at all. At its heart, it's really a way of thinking, a powerful way of understanding human choice, and it all boils down to one single fundamental problem that drives every decision we make. And that fundamental problem? It's scarcity. It's the simple fact that we live in a world where we can't have everything we want. We have limited resources, time, money, you name it, but our desires are pretty much unlimited. Economics is just the study of how we juggle all that. I mean, think about it. If scarcity didn't exist, we wouldn't even need economics. It's the starting point for absolutely everything.
Okay, so to study this problem, economists had to create a main character for their stories, a model. Let's call this character the economic agent and see what makes them tick, at least according to the standard textbook.
All right, so let's break down this classic model. This economic agent is, well, a simplified, almost superhuman version of us. They're laser-focused on their goals, they act purely in their own self-interest, they're perfectly rational, and they react predictably to incentives. Oh, and here are the really wild ones. They have all the information they could ever need, and they face zero transaction costs, which basically means there's no friction or extra cost to making a deal.
Now, as I'm saying this, you're probably thinking, does this sound like anyone you know? Of course not, right? Nobody has complete information. Deals always have some kind of cost or hassle, and that's exactly the point. This model isn't meant to be reality. It's a baseline. It's a starting point. And honestly, the most interesting stuff in economics comes from figuring out exactly where and why this perfect model falls apart.
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into now. We're going to challenge two of the biggest, most important assumptions in that whole model: the goal of efficiency and the very idea that we're all perfectly rational agents.
So first up, let's talk about efficiency. You hear that word all the time, but it turns out there's not just one single definition. Under what's called Pareto efficiency, a change is only considered good if it helps at least one person and hurts nobody. It's basically a no-losers rule. Simple enough. But then there's Kaldor-Hicks efficiency. This one's different. It says a change is good if the winners gain more than the losers lose. The huge difference? Yeah, Kaldor-Hicks treats both winners and losers. And this brings us to a massive ethical question, doesn't it? If a new policy makes the whole economic pie bigger overall, but some people actually end up with a smaller slice than they had before, is that really a good thing? Is that progress? This tension is at the heart of so many political debates. Okay, now for the second big challenge. Let's talk about rationality. The standard model assumes we're all these perfectly logical decision makers, but just think about your own life. We all do things that don't seem perfectly rational all the time, right? Well, it turns out even economists have different ways of defining rationality. Under one view, called means-ends rationality, an action is considered rational as long as you believe it's going to help you get what you want, even if that belief is based on, say, a superstition. But then you have epistemic rationality, which is way stricter. It demands that your actions are based on actual logic, evidence, and, this is key, a willingness to change your mind when you get new information. So you see the point here? That core assumption of perfect rationality, it has its limits. Acknowledging this has been a huge deal. It's opened up whole new fields of study, like behavioral economics, which is all about how our messy, human, sometimes illogical psychology really affects our economic choices. All right, let's move on to our final section. We're going to look at two more really sophisticated concepts that give us much better, much sharper tools for seeing the world like an economist. Okay, get ready because this simple little idea is one of the most powerful concepts in all of economics. It's this: when making a decision, you should forget the total. Forget the big picture. The only thing that matters is the next one. It's not about how many beers you've had, it's about the value of the next beer. Let me break it down. The difference between having your very first beer and having none at all, that's a huge deal. The value is massive. But the difference between having your 12th beer and your 11th, that value is very, very different. Economists call this thinking at the margin. They don't really care about the total value of 12 beers. They're obsessed with the value of that one additional beer. And this is it. This is the whole game. Marginal costs, marginal benefits, marginal value. Almost all important decisions are made right there on the edge, unit by unit. Should you study for one more hour? Should a business hire one more employee? Should a factory produce one more widget? The important thing is always the marginal.
And that brings us to our final, really cool concept, the idea that there are two kinds of order in our world. On the one hand, you've got designed order. This is something created by a central authority with a specific plan. Think of a company's organizational chart or a law passed by the government. It's top-down. But on the other hand, you have spontaneous order. This stuff emerges from countless individual actions, but it wasn't designed by any single person. Think of a language or the way prices are set in a busy market. It's an order that arises all by itself.
And that leaves us with one of the deepest, most profound questions in economics, in politics, in life, really. The great challenge is knowing when to step in and try to impose a designed order, and when it's better to just step back and trust in the incredible, sometimes chaotic, power of spontaneous forces to find a solution. Definitely something to think about.